Hi, everyone. Thank you again to the conference organizers for allowing me to speak today as well as yesterday. For those of you who don't know about CATIE, CATIE is a national organization, and it's sort of considered Canada's source for HIV and hepatitis C information. So if you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend checking out our website. We have quite a few publications and resources that really aim to sort of distribute the latest and greatest information about HIV, hepatitis C. Mostly our history is in treatment focused, but we are sort of branching out slowly also into prevention as well. And I'm working on a 1-year, 3-month project sort of really looking at gay, bi, queer, two-spirit, cis and trans men's health. So the presentation that I'm doing today is based on a syphilis campaign, a national syphilis campaign that we conducted earlier this year and just at the end of last year. But it's actually, I'm actually going to be talking about what I learned in that process, not so much about the campaign itself. So basically, just for the agenda, we're going to review the campaign just so that you have a sense of what I'm talking about. Then talk about some of the different models that are available for advertising online, choosing the right online advertising venue to meet the goals that you might have if you want to advertise online, and then just give you some general tips that we got from the process that we did for this project. So a little bit about the syphilis campaign. The formal title is "Attack of the Cursed Syphilis. It's Lurking in the Depths." It was originally developed by the AIDS Committee of Toronto and funded by the Toronto Public Health, and really as a response to the huge increase in syphilis rates that we've seen among gay, bi, MSM men in Toronto. So that campaign started in early 2010. Print materials, website. There were subway ads and paid print and online advertising. Later on in that year, the Gay Men's Sexual Health Alliance of Ontario distributed it provincially, and they also created a pause-focused postcard. And then between October 2010 and March 2011, CATIE sort of nationalized and made available nationally the syphilis campaign. So the campaign itself, again, like I sort of mentioned, I'm not really here to talk too much about the campaign, but I did want to give you a sense of what it is. The original goal of the ACT campaign was to raise awareness of continued high rates of syphilis infection among gay and bisexual men, to increase knowledge about syphilis testing, and the health impact of syphilis on HIV-positive men, and to encourage men to seek testing for syphilis. Now, there have been lots of comments and sort of critiques of the creative of the campaign, and I have been one who have personally sort of questioned some of the way that the campaign has been approached, and really there's, I think, a valid question as to whether this campaign is stigmatizing, and who does that green monster represent. Now, this is a picture of the original movie poster that the campaign was based on. So it's actually a very, very close likeness. And really the monster is meant to be the syphilis monster. And sort of the way ACT has sort of posited it is that it's a humorous and campy satirical twist on a 1950s B-movie and horror film publicity materials. So the creature from the Black Lagoon. So that's sort of where the campaign came from. And if anyone is interested in talking to me or wants to sort of communicate about sort of the actual nature of the campaign, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. But my presentation today really is about sort of actually online advertising and what we learned. So for the CATIE arm of the campaign, we created sort of a nationally relevant postcard, a brochure, a poster, both in English and French, and those were distributed through CATIE's online ordering center, which if you haven't checked out, I encourage you to do so. You can order a huge number of print materials, which will be delivered to you for free at your organization. And we also created a nationally relevant syphilis website that was part of CATIE's website that had really sort of basic information about syphilis, sort of like the bare bones, what you need to know, and then some more detailed information for people who are a little bit more curious. So the second part of the campaign that we did was actually online advertising. Now I'm not talking about really social marketing here per se. We didn't like create Facebook profiles and tweet and that kind of thing. I'm talking today about actually purchasing advertising space on the internet, which is basically what we did. And we purchased space with Google, Squirt.org, Gay.com, and Facebook. And additionally to that, all Squirt.org members in Canada got sort of like an e-blast in their little messages list, which had some basic information and then also drove people to the website. So, in terms of why we selected these outlets, so Squirt.org and Gay.com are relatively well-known Canadian websites, and they're, and really because they're utilized by men actively looking to connect with other men. So we thought they were sort of relevant to reach a certain population and group. They had also been used by the Gay Men's Sexual Health Alliance, so there was a working relationship, and it was a little bit more cost-effective. But CATIE had never actually advertised on Facebook or Google before, and so we wanted to try that and see what that process would be like, to see if that's something that we wanted to think about doing more in the future. And we sort of also thought that Facebook and Google might reach a different type of population of men who have sex with men, gay by men, than Squirt.org and Gay.com would. And so we were curious to see if we could figure out anything about how those things might be different. So just a note, obviously all ads pointed to the CATIE Syphilis website, and the ads were geo-targeted to all regions of Canada except Ontario, because Ontario had already been given the ad campaign. So when I say geo-targeting, most of these sites allow you to choose like either very broadly or very specifically where, like the physical location of the people that will be seeing your ad, right down to the city level often. So we did a national campaign, so it was all of Canada except for Ontario. However, I guess I learned later that Squirt.org just gave us Ontario for free, so they did sort of Ontario again. So why would we advertise online? There are many reasons why one might want to use online advertising as a way to reach sort of populations you're working with. One is to actually advertise or distribute health information, to inform people about a program or service at your organization or in your community, to recruit volunteers or study participants in research, or to increase your organization's visibility generally. So if you just want some brand recognition in your community or the communities that you're working with. Also, the internet does really have the potential to reach a lot more people than typical venue-based outreach, because you can sort of get people in their homes at their computers. They don't necessarily have to be in a physical location. But I do want to acknowledge though that this is not necessarily the way that everyone can reach their populations in their communities. So not all communities are using the internet. So this is really, a targeted type of intervention for a certain group of people who do use the internet. And one thing that I did want to sort of mention is that actually advertising on the internet can be quite cost effective. It seems like it would be very expensive, but there are some models that are not so expensive, and I'll be telling you about that a little bit. So there are sort of like a few different types of models of online advertising that we can use if we want to buy ad space. So the two that we used, Gay.com and Squirt.org, they use the more traditional web advertising models, and it's sort of like purchasing advertising space in a magazine or in a newspaper. So you work with the sales department at these companies, you purchase ad space for a fixed amount of time, and the cost is the same regardless of how many people actually click through on your ad. So your ad's just there, people see it. If they click on it to go to your website, it doesn't really matter. So basically the way they do that is they say, okay, if your ad is going to be shown for this many days, you're going to get this number of impressions, and that's what we're going to charge you based. Now an impression is basically you get one impression every time that image is loaded on a page. So nobody has to click on it. So like if someone say goes to extra.ca and sees your ad, that's one impression. And then if they click on a newspaper article and it goes to another page and that ad loads again, that's another impression. So we're talking big numbers of impressions. So some aspects of buying banner space on websites like this. So first of all, it's a fixed cost regardless of the campaign success, which for some can be good and some can not be good. It is less labor intensive. You set your images up, you let it run. That's it. You might monitor it, but there's not much that you can necessarily do to change it. In general, it is more expensive to advertise with, but depending on your goals, you might be really reaching the audience that you want to reach. One thing that I also noticed is that I just working with the companies Gay.com and Squirt.org, I developed a relationship with those companies, which I think in the future could be helpful for me. I don't know if it will be, but it might be. It's a good way to sort of build relationship with sites that really are sort of crucial in, I think, queer men's online communities and online experiences. Another way that you can advertise online is through these e-blasts or broadcasts. So this is an example of the squirt.org message that we sent out to all of the members, So it just shows up in their email box, like, you know, they probably got excited because they were going to get a hot date, and it's the attack of the cursed syphilis. So it's a one-time message sent out to targeted members of an online community, and you can sort of work with the website to choose which members get it. And that message can contain as much or as little information as you want. So one of the benefits of that is that if you don't want to have to get people to go all the way to your website, you can put all the information in that message, and that's it. Some people might click through to get more information. It's sort of up to you. And the cost of that is really dependent on how many people you send out the message to. So the more people, the more expensive it is, obviously. So the sort of the other types of or model that or structures that Facebook and Google share they actually will offer you two different pricing schemes for buying advertising space. So the first one is similar to like gay.com. You'll pay per 1,000 impressions, and the cost of those thousands of impressions vary depending on the audience that you're advertising to. And how many people are competing for that ad space, so it's sort of a fluctuating amount that you might pay. But you can also choose to pay per click-through. So a click-through is when someone actually sees your ad and clicks through it to go to your website, right? So that tends to be a very cost-effective way of advertising to people, because you are only paying for people to actually click through to your website. If nobody clicks through it, well, you probably should change your ad, but also you won't pay, right? So it's not the end of the world. That's about the only way that Facebook and Google are similar, right? Is by letting you choose those two models and how you want to pay. So why would you choose one versus the other? Say, for instance, you just wanted to make sure that your community knew about and recognized the logo of your organization. You might just want to pay per 1,000 impressions and say, I want 30,000 people to see this ad one time, and just seeing it will do what it needs to do. But if you actually really want someone to go to your website or to partake in your program, then you might want to pay for click-throughs because it's a little bit more sort of direct. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook first, as sort of a specific venue. Facebook, this is sort of a Facebook page here on the screen, and on the right-hand column you'll see there's just often little ads. So if you have Facebook, you'll recognize the ads. There's usually a little X at the right corner that you can click off. If you really hate an ad, you can click it off. So basically what you do is you go onto Facebook, you can design your own ads. It's very simple. They use a very little amount of text, like usually a small image. And once you've designed your ad, you can set a daily or an overall campaign budget and then let it run for as long as it goes until you've gotten your clicks, right? So if you want to get 100 people to click through your website and you have sense that it's going to cost 50 cents per click, then you can set that up and just let it go until you get your clicks. So it can be very easy as well. With Facebook, though, you can really target your ads into very, very specific audiences. So like the level of cities in terms of where they're located, their age, their sex, which is how Facebook sort of describes it. Like I would probably use, say, gender or gender identity. Their interests, their education and work experience, their relationship status, and whether they're interested in men or women. So one of the challenges here, but also opportunities, is you can say, okay, I want to advertise to men who are interested in men on Facebook. But then, of course, you're not actually going to be reaching the people who have not sort of disclosed to Facebook that they are interested in other men. So you might actually be missing some people, depending on how you choose to target your ads. These are just some pictures of some of the ads we used. So Facebook allows you to run multiple ads, and then you can sort of compare the various success of the different ads and see how they go. And again, because we were only paying for successful click-throughs, it didn't really matter. The two ads that were the most successful for us are the two on the top, which are probably the most sort of fear-inducing ads. They really did get the click-throughs. If I have time at the end, though, I might tell you about the English campaign, because a lot of people apparently either didn't like that ad or didn't want to see it because it was eventually disapproved on Facebook, and so we had to create other ads, which is why those two others were there, because we had to sort of use different methods. So there was an indication that maybe some community members didn't like the picture or the text, but it was really the picture that because based on the different things that we changed on the other ads. So sort of an interesting lesson there, I guess. Google has many different venues and ways to advertise. We use the simplest one where you basically just give it a list of keyword searches. So if someone is going and they type syphilis gay or syphilis symptoms, then they might see the results, your ad in the results. They have their ads are extremely small. There's very few letters that you can get, so you have to be very careful in the words that you choose. And you can sort of geo-target your ads, so you can only show ads to certain people in certain regions. But otherwise, it's not that easy to determine who exactly will see your ad, right? So that's why the choosing of the search terms that you use is really important. The most successful search term that we got the most hits from on Google was actually squirt.org. So people would search for squirt.org on Google, and then they would see our syphilis ad, and then that's how we would get a lot of people. So that's sort of ironic, because squirt.org was actually also really successful in terms of advertising. These are our Google ads here as well, in English and French. So as you can see, they're very simple, small ads. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about what the numbers of our campaign actually looked like. So we at CATIE use a piece of software called Urchin. And Urchin is basically a self-hosted piece of software that is very similar to Google Analytics, which is much more accessible. You can go to it on the web. I've never set up a Google Analytics account, but if you want to measure and monitor how many people are coming to your website, where they're coming from, how long they spend on your website, Google Analytics can tell you so much information, and it's very helpful. I set this up with the tech guys at CATIE so that we could really monitor exactly where people were coming to our website from. So we wanted to see the success of each of the different sort of aspects of our campaign. You can see things like total number of visits, how people got to your website, so obviously all these things that I've already mentioned, because I do like to repeat myself. And the way that we did it is through something called click tag. So basically you put in the website and then the little red thing, question mark ID, and then whatever you want to sort of distinguish your different sources from. So like if I advertise on Facebook, that instead of that line there after ID would have said FB, or Google, it would have said Google. And people don't actually see that. It just sort of recognizes the server is told that their computer asked for that website, and then it just directs them to the actual syphilis website. So the numbers. In terms of the total number of visits, we got over 10,500 visits that were driven just by our online advertising. So that's, over a few months, that's quite a few people checking out the CATIE Syphilis website. As you can see, squirt.org and the English Facebook, well, I think French Facebook was also actually very successful. Those were our most successful websites for advertising on. We got quite a few numbers from both of those sites. Google, not so good. Gay.com, not so great. Squirt.org is an interesting one. It looks like we only got 250 clicks, but you have to remember that with that, people had already sort of seen a lot of the content of the campaign, so those click-throughs are actually really valuable click-throughs, because that means that people had already read sort of like a page of information and they wanted more. So those are 250 people who probably got quite a good amount of information. The direct visits are people who actually directly typed in the address into their web browser, so those are probably people who visited the website from our print materials that were distributed nationally. So many organizations across the country have been distributing those as well. So number of impressions, right? That's the number of times that the ad is shown on the website. If you look back, you can see that there's a little bit of a correlation. Facebook and Squirt definitely showed the ad the most times, and so that sort of partly explains why they probably got the most clicks. Google did not show the ad very much, so that might be an indication of the search terms that I chose, or the fact that people who were searching for those terms didn't really care about the ad. It's hard to say, but Google didn't actually get shown, like the ad didn't get shown, so it's hard to say how successful it was as much. The Squirt.org mail-out was sent to 100,000 guys. So click-through rate. This is the percentage of impressions that actually led to the click-through. So if we go back to slides, like almost 10 million impressions. On Squirt.org, only 0.04% of them actually led to click-throughs. So Squirt.org, even though it was our best advertising source, it had the worst sort of success in terms of how many times the ad needed to be shown. Google was really successful. So when people actually did see our ad, they clicked through to it. So it's sort of hard to say what website will work, and really depends on what your goals are and how good you are at sort of utilizing these technologies a little bit. And the Squirt.org mailout also got quite a good click-through rate, comparatively speaking, considering there was so much information on it. But it was quite expensive, so that's something to think about. Now here's the interesting thing: cost per click. So what you do is basically we said, like, we took the total amount that we spent on each campaign and we divided by the number of clicks that we got to know how much we paid for each person to click through to our website, which was our goal, right? Facebook was great, 51 cents per click. Those are pretty good numbers, and because Facebook was the second highest sort of grossing clicks, Facebook turned out to be, like one of the success stories of our campaign, I think. Google started getting a little more expensive. Gay.com, $5.58 per click. And then Squirt.org was $1.25 per click. The Squirt.org mailout was the most expensive, right? $15 for oops, that's my phone telling me that I'm out of time. But I'm almost done, so don't worry. So very expensive, but again, those clicks were really high value clicks, and people had already read a lot of that information. And this is just some general, I think, really interesting information. People who visited from the English page were on the site about 3 minutes. On the French page, they were spent about 6 minutes on the page. Geographic Breakdown, I'm not going to go into this. Campaign over time, you can see there are spikes there, which is the initiation of different sort of parts of our campaign. Over time, each campaign would get less and less successful, which one of the lessons of that is that long campaigns do not necessarily equal success, right? Because eventually people just get used to the materials and they don't really care that much. So a few tips here. Explore your options, know your population. Money does not equal success with online advertising. And track your campaign success is a big suggestion. Now, just so that you know, this is all the result of a more comprehensive report that I've created that has a lot more information and a lot that really steps you through a little better. I've brought about 30, so if anyone wants more information and more in-depth information, the report is available on the stairs. And thank you very much.